we're looking at an escalation into the governmental. It's one thing when rogue bands are going around doing shock and awe bombing again. That is extreme and it is terrifying. But the government was largely unified at the time. Right now, the government is completely fractured. And Democrats are outright saying when they get into office, they will arrest Trump, his cabinet, Republican politicians. Accountability, they say. That's all that matters. Progressives are writing articles saying civil war has already begun, showing images of ICE agents saying Trump is not going to leave office. He's saying no elections. My friends, civil war only really requires one thing: that there be a dispute over the legitimacy of government. That's it. You can talk about, back then the states were lining up and a strong ideology. Throw all those things aside. Those are more surface level. Like, yes, they're true about our civil war, and there's truth in other civil wars. But the point is this: when two or more groups dispute the authority of government, you have civil war. Now, don't get me wrong. You can also have revolution. You can also have just general oppression, right? A faction of people that are locked up and can't do anything does not a civil war make. My point is, what we're looking at right now in the United States is two distinct moral worldviews. We're not necessarily engaging in full-scale conflict, but Minneapolis does look like some kind of bleeding Kansas. You've got regular citizens being beaten in the street. There's a video of developers, app developers, getting threatened for simply looking like they could be ICE agents. And when the guy says, I don't even support ICE, they say, if you're not with us, you're against us. We have seen this bubbling up and brewing for some time. You add on the street violence, the attacks on regular people with the proselytizers of the liberal progressive worldview saying they will arrest you. And I think it's clear where we are at. If Democrats take power, if Republicans let them, what will happen should be obvious to everyone. Now, by all means, liberals are to defend their worldview. They say very similar things that we say. Trump is a despot. He's targeting his political opponents. Civil war is coming. Blah, blah, blah. They assert their moral worldview. Well, here's what I'm going to do for you, my friends. The first thing I'm going to do is give you the news. And then I'm going to prove why we are correct. That is, the liberals are wrong. Many of them are lying. The worldview of the progressive, communist, socialist, and general left is the ends justify the means. Truth is immaterial to these individuals, and they will say the exact same thing of you. They will say on the right, they don't believe in truth, they're fake news. Well, here's the reality. I can prove otherwise. I really can. And I'm going to show you. And for those that haven't been paying attention, many of you may say, that's right. The first thing I'm going to do is show you exactly what's going on. We had this from the New York Times. In Minneapolis, I glimpsed the Civil War. Well, my friends, it would not be a nightmarish, futuristic dystopia without an ad read in the second. Go to castbrew.com and buy Cast Brew coffee to make it possible for us to do these videos, for me to do this work. We have the new Rum Runners Roast, delicious Highlander grog flavored coffee, a bold, buttery blend inspired by Appalachian moonshines. So it's actually really good. I recommend you check it out. Castbrew.com, everyone's favorite, of course, Appalachian Nights, and Ian's Graphene Dream. Sells those like hotcakes. Now that I've sufficiently entertained the nightmare dystopia that is, we're talking about the collapse of a nation, but we gotta sell coffee. I hope you're thoroughly entertained. The New York Times writes, in Minneapolis, I glimpsed a civil war. Well, we would call this civil strife much like the bleeding Kansas period, 7 years before the actual civil war broke out in the United States. You had warring factions. Governments weren't necessarily involved in fighting, but ideological factions were murdering each other. Civilians were being dragged from their homes. Abolitionists, a group of them pulled out of their houses, slaughtered by pro-slavery forces. The inverse true as well. John Brown famously walking up to a guy, blasting him in the face, just killing him on the spot, with his sons in Kansas. The New York Times writes, now I will stress, I'm not too concerned about the opinions, I want to show you more of the facts, but the New York Times is saying it's happening. Like last Wednesday night, I was standing on the street corner in the Hawthorne neighborhood in North Minneapolis when I witnessed an extraordinary confrontation. A federal agent marched up a narrow residential Fallujah, full of body armor, camouflage fatigues, and helmet, no-turn boots, and had a machine gun slung by his side. What's the machine gun? Unless maybe I'm wrong, he's actually carrying a light machine gun, which would be weird. His carriage was erect, his gaze fixed straight ahead, seemingly oblivious to the crowd of protesters who blew whistles and shouted curses as he passed. Enraged that one weekend Renee was gunned down by an ICE agent, another civilian had been shot by ICE in their city. Civilian? Are you talking about the Venezuelan illegal immigrant who bashed him with a shovel? You see what they do? Suddenly the tent scene dissolved into slapstick. A federal officer slipped by a patch of ice and tumbled to the ground. The raucous roar of laughter and jeers from the protesters surrounding him. He quickly scrambled to his feet and marched on. But a few seconds later, one of the protesters shouted he dropped his magazine. And sure enough, lying on the patch of ice was a fully loaded magazine from his automatic weapon, which he might actually have an automatic weapon as law enforcement for that matter. Select fire, I doubt it. Then Angle Hard, one of the city's commissioners, was standing nearby. He grabbed the magazine and turned it over in his hands. Well, we're getting close to civil war. As a long-time foreign correspondent, I have covered civil wars in countries across the globe not so long ago. I would have rolled my eyes at the notion that one could occur anywhere in America, etc., etc. And I'm not so much concerned about the opining. I want to talk about the actual net effect. Let's roll, baby. Here's a video. A group of white male engineers eating the Clancy's Deli. You need to listen. You need to listen.
Yes, you can create your own 3D avatar.
Just chilling.
I mean, so cool as that. This has got to be the funniest thing I've ever seen.
If you're not with us, then you're against us. Get out of our effing neighborhood. But wait, who are these guys?
Oh my God! What? We do custom apps for a whole bunch of companies around Minnesota and the country. Holy fucking Christ!
He says you look like an ICE agent. This is a random group of guys eating lunch. He goes on to say, I just wanted to enjoy my lunch because they look like they could be ICE agents. They're screaming at him and threatening. It gets worse. Here's a guy being mercilessly beaten. Just for supporting ICE. They're trying to kill him. As far as we know, it's just some random guy. There's more. Take a look at this. A viral video. Jake Lang. Now, Jake Lang, he's called an anti-Islam activist. Some people say he's aggressive. Either way, he gets surrounded by this group. I do believe some of these people are trying to get him out of there because he might die, but I don't know for sure. He reported that he'd been attacked, and someone tried stabbing him, but hit his vest instead. This video, of course, went massively viral, and some people have criticized him for being antagonistic. Doesn't matter what you think of him. The point I'm bringing up is the conflict. Take a look at this. I highlighted in my earlier morning segment. Will Stansel says, by the way, whichever press crew this is, you need to find a more official-looking way to tell us, or even just pull over and show us your credentials when you get tailed. We followed you for 20 minutes because you were acting exactly like ICE does when they catch a tail. Pull over, he said. This is the point. They are acting like law enforcement. They are saying, you should pull over for us. How long until they get some kind of signal to instruct you to pull over so they can check? Of course, we had the mob that stormed the church, shutting church services down. Here's a video of a man being beaten because he wore a hoodie that said freedom. He's not even a white dude. He looks like he'd be Indian. Take it off, they said. Now he's taking off his hoodie in the cold in Minneapolis.
Get your ass up out of here.
Now, I don't know who that guy is. My immediate assumption is he's probably just a random regular guy because he took his hoodie off. If he was actually some kind of conservative activist or trying to go there to make a stand, he'd keep his hoodie on, but I don't know for sure. And they push him, they follow him, they don't stop. You may remember, of course, they looted a bunch of vehicles and stole weapons from the feds. Well, they caught that guy. He did get caught and arrested. And now we have this. From Eric Doherty, leftists in Minneapolis are getting armed and standing guard against ICE, saying this is my neighborhood. Now, of course, I respect the keeping and bearing of arms. And I don't got anything to say about a guy who's standing around using it or holding a weapon. That was always allowed. The question is his ideology motivating him to use that weapon on law enforcement? That's what he's expressing. He may not be saying it overtly, but that is what he's expressing. A group of Somali thugs robbed me of my $1,000 camera in the Cedar Riverside neighborhood of Minneapolis. They then dragged me down the street as my hand got trapped in their door handle. Nobody bothered helping. This is Nick Sorter. They stole his stuff and then dragged him.
He just stole Nick's camera.
And then drove on the sidewalk.
Just tell her to give him the camera back.
It's time for the Insurrection Act. Donald Trump has to put a stop to this. This is insanity. If this is allowed, if it's allowed, then the response from the extremists will be to do more in other places. The reason Renee Nicole Good got shot is a simple reason. There was a perceived threat from an ICE agent. You can argue whatever you want to argue, but there's a vehicle accelerating towards a cop. You can then argue after the fact, but she made contact with him. He got injured. He shot her. Should he have? I don't think so. It happened. That's the reason. But the question is, why was this middle-aged woman trying to evade arrest? Because these people, for the past decade, understand this. 15-year-old, 10 years ago, has no interest in politics, but for 10 years he's inundated with these stories of Trump, Nazi Germany, or whatever it might be. When he goes out and joins a protest when he gets a little older, what happens? The police basically pillow fight. That's basically what rubber bullets. It's a game. It's a game. There's no consequences. Now, what ICE is doing is not riot control. It's federal law enforcement operations, and they are armed for this. Meaning, rapists, criminals, murderers, etc., they are going after. So when Renee Good shows up to play her game and go, ooh, cops and robbers, that's what they're doing. She thinks she can speed away after committing, perceivably, 2 felonies. Well, to be fair, a single felony of obstruction of federal law enforcement, and then evading arrest. Both of which I believe evaded, we looked at it before, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's a felony to attempt to evade. More importantly, I think any reasonable understanding of accelerating your vehicle with an agent in front of you, whether the agent was right or wrong to be there, is also felony assault on an officer. And then when she was shot, which again, she should not have been. It's easy to say. Her wife screams out, well, it's not really her wife, her lesbian lover, and I'm the literal fact-based understanding, screams, why did you have real bullets? Because these people think it's a game. Now, if Trump does not shut down chaos and pandemonium, it will spread, because people will no longer believe there are any consequences. Renee Good and her lover thought the consequences would be a slap on the wrist. And now she's dead. One train of thought is that this is a wake-up call for these people that ICE is not doing crowd control or playing games. The problem is, it results in, so long as these people are able to keep going, they say, it's one guy who committed a murder. They don't say, we have to stop. Now, there's a question of whether or not Trump taking this action would actually solve anything. It could escalate things. But I can guarantee you this. If Trump does not invoke the Insurrection Act and put a stop to the lawlessness, the expectation for people right now is there are no consequences. There is the inverse. If Trump doesn't vote the Insurrection Act, sends the National Guard and shuts it all down, people may say he's a despot, he's a tyrant, and now this is good fashion. I don't think that's the likely outcome. I think if you get a bunch of National Guard standing around breaking up protests, arresting people for crimes, it just stops. A lot of these people are bored and crazy. But here's where it goes full scale nonetheless. Listen to this.
Tsunami means that Congress is going to haul Elon Musk, Big Balls, and a bunch of other people's ass in front and say, what crimes did you commit? And it's going to get really serious. And the same with Trump, because I believe, this is just my opinion, that Trump and all of the bottom-feeding morons surrounding him, and Elon Musk and all the bottom-feeding cleaner honors that surround him, I think they commit crimes every day. And I think to reconcile all of this is going to take hardcore, not integrity Democrats. Fuck you, Democrats. Fuck you for fucking over our country. We are serious about this. We are prosecuting. We're going to uncover every document, every phone call, everything you did. We will be relentless about it. And that's the mindset they've got to have. Because I think the electorate is going from, we've got to get him out. Also, we want accountability.
There has to be accountability. You have to have a situation where there's accountability. And I talked about this the other day with Fanon, the former Canadian police officer who almost got killed on January 6th. You know, he said, and I think it's true, that it's more than just the Democrats win back to Congress and the White House. We have to change this John Roberts Supreme Court decision that gave the President of the United States a blank check. No man or woman should be above the law in this country. And Donald Trump sure as shit should not be above the law in this country. And I think the Democrats have to talk about it in these terms, that, listen, if we get back in there, and I'm not saying I'm part of that party, but I'm saying this is the way the Democrats should communicate. They should say, when they're back in there, if you guys are going to cling to this idea that Donald Trump is unaccountable, it's just not going to work. And that means adding seats to the Supreme Court so that immunity decision can be overturned, and so Donald Trump can be held accountable for his crime.
Held accountable for his crimes. It doesn't matter if you think he did or didn't commit crimes. The fact of the matter is, two factions are going to war. If you're a liberal watching this for some reason, fact remains that you agree Trump should go to jail, Trump agrees they should go to jail. That's it. You can fight for what you think is right, as most people are expected to, but here's the reality. The left, their worldview is fake. Now, if you're a liberal watching this, I'd be surprised you made it this far, to be completely honest, but I respect that you did. And your worldview is largely fake. Trump by no means is a perfect guy. He certainly does a lot of bad things. He lies all the time. I would consider him a lecherous old man. And, I'd give him a C+. I think his family are all really good people. I can't speak too much for Trump and his celebrity, nasty lifestyle and all that stuff. But his kids, their families, have been nothing but good people. You don't see the same thing. So Trump, for whatever he did wrong, he made a good family. And you can criticize him for multiple ways, whatever you want to do. Trump is not perfect, and Trump does things wrong. But there is truth and there is reality. Here's a post that went viral. How many recent mainstream media hoaxes did you fall for? This is the crux of why we are facing a civil war, to be completely honest. Now, it's not the only reason, but here's a list of fake stories perpetuated by the corporate press. Some of which I think are a little bit exaggerated because they're more of a hard right view. But the truth is this. For moderates, we find ourselves aligned with Republicans because of this list. Let me show you. First, Russian collusion. That's right. For years, corporate press said Donald Trump colluded with Russia, and they lied about everything. Secret bank accounts and backroom deals. claiming that Don Jr. had secret access to WikiLeaks emails in advance. None of it was true. Some people still believe it was true, but it wasn't. It just literally wasn't. $35 million in investigative costs, the Mueller report, and it was nothing really happened. 2020 election, most secure in history. Now, of course, people on the right are going to argue it was stolen or whatever. I'm not even going to go there for the liberals, right? I'm just going to point out that in Georgia, they recently acknowledged that there were hundreds of thousands of ballots that were improperly counted. Hundreds of thousands. Look into it. I don't know if that would change the result of the entire election. There was also Texas v. Pennsylvania, a lawsuit that was never reconciled, arguing that Pennsylvania altered its voting process in violation of its constitution. We don't have an answer from the courts. So we don't know exactly if it's the most, yeah, I'm going to say this. Believe whatever you want to believe, whether it was stolen or not stolen, but I will say this. They came out and said, the government actors and watchdogs, it was the most secure in history, which is just an obvious lie. Come on, that makes no sense. Just literally makes no sense. You can argue Biden won, that's fine. I think they won through ballot harvesting, but to call it the most secure ever, Trump called neo-Nazis fine people. He never did. He said that they should be condemned totally. If you get vaccinated, you won't catch COVID, which they initially reported, and later on said actually it just reduces severity. Justice Smollett got caught faking the whole thing. Bubba Wallace, they claimed there was a noose in his garage. It was a pull rope for a garage door. Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation. Turns out that was not correct. It was actually it was his laptop, and he's never denied it. He's only just said, I don't recall. That doesn't make sense to me. The Covington kids, they claim this kid was staring in the face of a poor Native American. In fact, it was the inverse. Governor Whitmer kidnapping plot. Turns out almost all of the people were informants or agents themselves. The Chinese weather balloon. I don't know why they say that was a hoax. It actually flew over the country. Kavanaugh rape story was insane. They claimed that he was at parties where they were lining up outside of a door, I'm not exaggerating, and gang raping women inside. Not an exaggeration. Insane, never happened. Trump said drinking bleach would fight COVID. He never said that, not once. Trump said when they were discussing UV light and bleach for surfaces, he said, is there a way to get it disinfected inside the body in some way? Immediately he was attacked, and they exaggerate this point. I think it was a bit of a silly question, but a question's a question. And they do have UV light therapy for your lungs, because UV does kill bacteria. It's not widely practiced, however. Trump was talking about having some kind of agent, disinfectant, that you could inject, not drink. Russia bombed their own pipeline. That's funny. It was Germany actually accused the Ukrainian. The Trump pee tape, they claimed Trump had yeah, you know that one. They claimed Trump hired hookers to pee on a bed. COVID lab leak was a conspiracy theory. Now they say, yeah, oops. Border agents whipped migrants. In fact, it was just the, what do you call it? I'm forgetting the word. When you're riding a horse, you know, they were not whips, and they tricked people. Trump saved nuclear secrets of Mar-a-Lago. That was just an insane lie, an exaggeration. The Steele dossier was manufactured fake opposition intel, of course. They released it anyway. Russian bounties on U.S. soldiers in Afghanistan was an exaggeration. Muslim travel ban. There were several countries that were not Muslim countries. Cuomo showed the best COVID leadership. It's more of an opinion, but he did kill a lot of people. The ghost of Kiev when the war broke out. It was video game footage. Trump built cages for migrant kids. Actually, Obama did. Al-Baghdadi was an austere religious scholar. He was a terrorist and a rapist. Trump overfed koi fish in Japan. One of the originals, actually. He was just doing what Shinzo Abe did. Then you have Trump tax cuts benefits only the rich. Vox co-founder actually praised progressive lies, saying it was effective messaging because the reality was it was a middle-class tax cut. Cloth masks prevent COVID. They came out later and said that it didn't. An SUV killed parade marchers. I'm not sure. Oh, I see. This is when a terrorist killed parade marchers. Trump used tear gas to clear a crowd for a Bible photo. No, it was a violent crowd that firebombed the White House grounds in St. John's Church. Don't say gay was in the bill. In fact, it wasn't. The bill would have banned straight people from talking about marriage. They said, keep sexual relationships out of the classroom. The Putin price hike, I'm not sure what that's referring to. Ivermectin is horse dewormer, not for humans. It's a lie. It's a prescription medicine, and it's an anti-parasitic. Mostly peaceful protest was a famous one where they burned down a police station, and the guy said it's mostly peaceful. Trump overpowered Secret Service for Wheel of the Beast, which is impossible because it's a secure compartment you can't reach through. Officer Sicknick was murdered by protesters. An overt lie. He died several days later from natural causes. They tried justifying why it's actually not natural causes, but it was a lie. J6 was an insurrection. You know what? I'll give you this one. It's an opinion statement. I don't think it was because some people were rioting. Most people were not. Those who rioted should get jailed. Trump mocked a reporter's disability. That was one of the first. Trump would do this thing where he would make fun of anybody by going like this, and so they found a reporter who had a disabled arm and then claimed Trump was attacking his disability. All of these lies, after 10 plus years, formulate a worldview of liberals. They don't know the truth. Even just 8 or so months ago, we had a liberal reporter on the show, and she did not know that Trump, she didn't really believe Trump called Nazis fine people. He never did. He said, they were very fine people on both sides, and I am not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists because they should be condemned totally. So what did the corporate press do? They cut that part out, so he said, they're very fine people on both sides, end of quote. That's what they did. Almost 10 years later, that's like 8 years later, and this woman had no idea. So here we are. The Second American Civil War is already here. Whowhatwhy.org, and they say it's because Donald Trump has waged war against cities and states that did not vote for him. Center for Immigration Studies says, is a civil war brewing in Minnesota over immigration. What we're seeing in Minnesota, it's getting crazy. It's just getting crazy. And what scares me the most is that it's winter. And in winter, things are calm. My friends, you tell me in the comments. The funny thing is, because I've been saying this for a long time, and people, they said it was nuts, it could never happen. Now everybody is saying it. Still, some people say it's crazy, but more and more people are saying it. I'm going to wrap it there, my friends. Smash the like button, share the show with every person you've ever met. You can follow me on X and Instagram at TimCast. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all in the next